Local banks pretty much fairly valued in Chris's view?
Well, look, I mean, only time will tell, but we disagree with that view. We still think they're showing reasonably good value. I mean, it's quite simplistic. You take about 50% profit growth in the next 2.5 years, straight. I mean, that is phenomenal. Now, if that occurs and the share prices don't go up, in 2 years' time, the price-earnings ratios are going to be about 6, which is just too low. So we still think, let's just say, I mean, it's so hard to give estimates, but let's say the share prices could go up on banking shares by at least 30% over the next 2 years. And we think that's a reasonable estimate. And even more so than just an estimate, it's almost in the bag, because you know that the bad debts are going to be written back. I mean, you know this. You don't have to debate it. Whether we get volume growth, whether we get credit growth, we can talk about that forever. But you know the bad debts are going to be written back, and that will give you the earnings growth. So in our view, this is a fairly, if you'd like to call it, an easy investment decision.
Do you go with, in the banking environment, the low beta stocks, those are less risky, or do you go for the likes of potentially an Investec, or maybe
look, Investec very different because of the overseas exposure. The other 4 major banks are much of a muchness. I mean, we prefer Standard Bank and First Rand, but quite frankly, there's not much to call between them in our view. And
both First Rand and Standard Bank have said that they are after Nigerian banks, those one of the 9 banks that were recently bailed out.
But I mean, still, that's more longer term. It won't really affect the share prices.
It's to an Africa strategy.
Oh, very much so, yeah. Look, First Rand has, and to its advantage in some circumstances, stayed in South Africa right throughout all the Rand crises we've had and all the other economic crises we've had over the last 8 to 10 years. You know, a lot of the people who went overseas, you take Old Mutual, even Investec, you know, they got caned severely for going overseas. But we have to have, First Rand has to have some sort of expansion strategy. And going into Africa, at least, is something we understand. And, you know, let's see what happens. But I must say, that sounds quite positive.
Investec, can we touch on that and your thoughts on Investec and whether you would be exposed to the stock?
No, we have got Investec. We're not overexposed to Investec. Investec will, same as everyone else, will benefit from a global economic recovery, and certainly the economic recovery in the UK in particular will help them, and some sort of stabilization of the UK property market will help them. But we're still skeptical in the UK property market. I mean, their troubles are not over there yet. There might be a temporary respite, but the UK property market, the troubles are not finished there yet.
Old Mutual, I know we've spoken about the banks. Let's talk about financials and just to extend that discussion a little bit further. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe you are exposed on the Old Mutual front. We're currently at about 13.27 Rand, far cry from the 6 Rand level or the 4 Rand level.
4 Rand level, yeah.
Were you accumulating when it was around about 4?
We bought right at the bottom. We were lucky. And we've had a very, very good payoff from Old Mutual. We're still heavily overweight, even though we are taking some profits. But this is a prime beneficiary of global stabilization and global economic recovery, a prime beneficiary. And their latest valuation of the shares, which is the embedded value, is about 15 Rand a share. And of course, that's going to go up. That's already an old number. So we would think the share price can run to 15 or 16 Rand quite comfortably. But obviously, you know, it's up over 200%. You know, let's get greedy at this level.
The likes of an Able at 28 Rand 70.
No, we don't own any Able. We're still worried about Able.
Is it the Ellerin
Yeah, it's the Ellerin story. And look, maybe this is the biggest sitting duck that's around. I mean, you just don't know. It's heavily geared to the upside. I mean, this could be the best performing share in 2010. It could easily be, but we're still a little bit worried about it, and we're a bit skeptical. We don't own any. But understand, probably the risks are on the upside there than the downside.
Capitec was one of the best performing stocks.
No,
2009.
I think you can still buy Capitec at this level. I don't think you've got any problems.
What is Capitec doing right that it has
They just seem to have their credit scoring system working correctly. They don't seem to pick up the same level of bad debts as what the other players in that market pick up. And they've done extremely well, and I think will continue to do well.
From the banking sector, anything else, and we're going to be touching on the likes of MTN and Vodacom a little bit later with Spirit Chireka, but is there anything else that you think is noteworthy on the stock market at the moment?
I think there's 2 themes that we're following. We don't own much gold or much platinum at all. So we've already spoken about the platinum, and the gold I've spoken about a few times. We strongly overweight the big diversifieds, Anglo, American and Bhiliton. and we overweight the banks. I mean, that's really the themes we've got in the portfolio, which is in fact not dissimilar to what happened last year.
Why are you strongly overweight to both Anglos and BHP Bhiliton?
They're just cheap. If you look at their price earnings ratio compared to certainly the gold shares and the platinum shares, they are significantly lower, and these companies are so diversified. They're massive, especially Bhiliton, they're massively diversified, and any Chinese economic growth and any global recovery, we've already seen some of the prices going up of iron ore. Platinum's the best one to look at. We'll have a continuation for another year at least on commodity prices. But understand, I think personally in the next 2 years we're going to be faced with a very, very big question as investors, because I think in 2 years' time, when interest rates go up, we're going to have a resumption, not to the same extent, but we're going to have a little mini 2008, 2009.
But you can enjoy the ride, in your opinion, for the next 2 years.
Yeah, maybe not 2 years, but the next year.
ArcelorMittal has had some positive moves over this week. It's now at 114 Rand 80. Given the fact that it has underperformed the steel price quite significantly, do you think that this one could be a recovery story?
Yes, we've discussed this in this last week. We've discussed Arcelor quite extensively internally. We haven't gone out and bought yet. We don't own any. We haven't gone out and bought yet, but it's starting to look quite tempting to go out there. But
what will be the catalyst for you to go out and buy ArcelorMittal?
I suppose we just got to get all of our ducks in a row and look at it on a more logical basis. We've got our analysts, torturing the numbers now, and when they do a presentation, we'll make a joint decision. But it is a candidate to go out and buy, I would think.
Looking at Vodacom and MTN, now, as I said, we are going to be focusing on that with Spiro Chireka in just a moment, but your view on what is happening on this front. And again, I allude to the call that has been bandied about, that you potentially could be switching from an MTN into the likes of a Naspers, that even though it has run hard, perhaps has more upside than an MTN. Yeah, look, Naspers is a difficult one. We are heavily overweight Naspers. But it is a difficult one because it hinges on this 10 cent, and I'm not sure if everyone fully understands what's happening in the Chinese teleco and the Chinese market that 10 cent operates in. But if you come back to Vodacom and MTN, we bought Vodacom for the first time ever at about 52, 53 Rand, which is more or less where the price is today. So we've bought in for the first time. We bought maybe 2 months ago. We remain big holders of MTN, and in fact we're buying more at below 110. You're not concerned about the story unfolding in Nigeria, where MTN... But that's why the share price is 40% lower than where it was at its peak, and there's a price for everything. But it could not, I mean, surely it could be reflecting the reality going forward for the company. It could easily be, and we might be wrong. But one thing you know for sure, people aren't going to give away and throw away their cell phones. Cell phones are here, so you might have a Rika type of thing happening in Nigeria, and Vodacom might have made a bad acquisition also in Africa, a gateway that is not going to work for them. But are you buying good companies? The answer is yes. Are you buying them at a fairly decent share price? The answer probably also is yes. And can they generate cash? The answer is definitely yes. They are going to generate massive cash. Remind me of your thoughts on Telkom and where we lie with this one. There are a number of market commentators out there, specifically in the telecommunications space, that say that at some point Telkom is going to become very cheap, and you've got to decide when that is. Yeah, but I don't think it's now. I mean, Telkom, we all know the history. They've been singularly unsuccessful in either getting the fixed line right or all of their new ventures right. They've had to write off piles of money on anything that they're doing. Now they're going into the mobile market with 6 billion. Now, quite frankly, I don't think 6 billion is even vaguely near enough money if you really want to become a competitor. And the market in SA is mature, and it's already sewn up between all the players we've got here. Where's the gap? How are they going to give a competitive edge in the mobile market simply by saying we're going into mobile? I mean, we've got, I don't know, 120% penetration here. So everyone in the country's got 1.2 cell phones. Where's the gap? I just can't see it. It's not cheap enough. But at some stage, it is going to get significantly cheap, and maybe then we buy it. But we've never owned Telkom since the day it's listed. And then, Wayne, can you give me your thoughts on Altec? Wayne, yes, Altec's nice, yeah. David likes this one, and he feels in this space. We don't own any, but that's mainly a liquidity issue. Maybe we should own some, quite frankly. Altec is looking good. They've got very good strategies. Actually, I actually like the business. Would you prefer the entry point? Of course, you've got 2 listed entry points on Altec, and you can either go Ultron or you can go Altec. No, you go Altec.
Altron's got Power Tech, and it's got a few other. It's got Bytes Technologies.
Aberdare Cables falls into Power
all
Tech,
of these
all
things.
that.
Yeah. So you go Altec. You don't go Altron.